talk to the hand. Alright, here's some more fighting stances from video games, which I will overanalyze in terms of real-life practicality, just for fun. So starting out, this is one that you've probably seen from a number of characters. Cervantes from Soul Calibur. This is definitely a stance that I've seen elsewhere too. I was also thinking of the Gerudo from Zelda, but that's actually a little different, where the offhand saber is not pointing forward. Otherwise, pretty similar. How practical is it in real life? Well, quite, really. Particularly the way Cervantes does it, because he has a longer and a shorter weapon, even though the longer sword looks like it's meant to be used with two hands, which is why I picked this one. It seems quite long, but you could do it, even this, it's doable. And this makes plenty of sense, because this is really a matter of closing lines, like covering your openings. And of course, two swords in that regard work better than one. This is a stance that you can use with one hand as well, or with a shield perhaps, or with two hands. It's basically all the same kind of idea. So what is the idea? Well, a few things. One, it puts the blade in line to threaten the opponent. So from here you can quickly thrust, whether it be with one or two hands. In fact, you can even wind to the other side for a thrust there as well. And this is also great to stop opponents who like to rush in and try to seek a grappling situation. Just put the point forward, whether it be low or high. It just gives them something to think about, to have the point in their face so they don't just keep rushing forward.
Here he's starting another charge where I'm basically pointing my sword in his face, so that's one way to discourage that.
Also, it protects the head, which is obviously a rather important target. Or it protects the right side of the head. The upper right opening is closed off. There's really no point in attacking there for the opponent, and at the same time you have the point threatening. The offhand sword does the same thing for the lower left opening. Really, it can cover the entire left side, head as well, and leg, but it's really primarily that. And again, the point is forward, and interestingly, in this position, they both have pretty much the same reach, even though this blade is substantially longer, but it's just so much more retracted in this stance. The entire right shoulder is pulled back, so you don't actually get that much further. So from here, as I said, the offhand sword can attack with a thrust, not with too much else other than a rising cut, because it's already forward, right? You would have to retract it and then fire it forward for an effective cut. This, on the other hand, just by mirroring the stance, basically, you can cut like that, or undercut, whatever you need, really. The nice thing here is it gives a good amount of separation between the two swords, so they're less likely to get in the way of each other. So this is really just a combination of two conventional guard positions that are perfectly good by themselves, and combined, still good. So 5 out of 5, that's easy. Next up, Granblue Fantasy Versus. Catalina has one of the coolest looking stances with the most aura, that's what the kids say these days, right? But also one of the most impractical, baffling stances I've seen. She seems to be left-handed with a rapier. She's got a bladed stance and pointing the rapier away from the opponent, holding her hand extremely close to the edge and standing there like this, like, yeah, come on, what you got? May look cool, but what the hell are you doing? Very little, really no practical sense here whatsoever. Yes, you can have a retracted stance, but there's not a whole lot you can do from there, right? Particularly with a rapier. I mean, business end is here. All right, there's a reason why rapier stances are generally point forward. You want to threaten them with the dangerous part. Obviously, you want to use your reach and all that. When you're retracting it, what you're threatening mainly is a cut. This doesn't look like that's a particularly powerful cutting sword by any means. Okay, so in this bladed stance where the feet and the body are turned 90 degrees or perpendicular away from the opponent, there's not a whole lot you can do here other than try to step forward with an advancing step and then doing a rising cut or an undercut from there. Or I suppose you could try a false edge cut, which seems a little awkward. Doable, but awkward. Or I suppose you could wind from here into a thrust, but again, that requires basically changing stance. You can always attack from just about any stance, but in some cases that involves transitioning through a different stance. Because a lot of stances are not actually meant to be held statically. The hand makes it even weirder because this is literally just a flavor thing, right? It adds some spice to it. It makes the stance look cooler, but it's really dumb because you have to first get the hand out of the way before you can even do this undercut, right? I mean, I suppose you could sort of jumpstart, kind of, but then you would put the hand against the flat rather than hover it right over the edge. It's just a strange thing, and it wouldn't really do that much anyway, but yeah, this is terrible. I would understand it more if it was facing the other way, right? I mean, again, you wouldn't really want to just have the hand there just hovering, because why? But you could do that, right? Not with the rapier, really. It's not the kind of weapon for that, but I suppose if you encountered armor, you could theoretically use half swording. There needs to be a shield here, or a parrying dagger or something like that. Now it would make more sense, but this still makes more sense than the opposite. It's just, you're just presenting a target without presenting a threat. Like all of this can be attacked, you know, shoulder, arm, head even, because there's really nothing preventing that. And yeah, it wouldn't take that long to respond to parry from there, but it's just, you don't gain anything. Like, you're not primed to strike the way you would be from here or here, even here, or there even. Like at that point, yeah, you're also pretty exposed unless you have a shield, but at least there's a powerful cut charged up here, so to speak. From there, you can really lay into them, which again, with a rapier with a fairly narrow blade, questionable, but at least it makes some sense, right? So as much as I like the aesthetic style, 1 out of 5, sorry. Practically, this makes no sense. Now, Lancelot has quite a reasonable stance. Oh, hang on. What are you doing? What is... Okay, this is not a problem. The offhand sword is fine. You know, like, yeah, it could be used to threaten with the point, but you can absolutely also just let it rest. You know, this is kind of an inviting defensive stance where you're ready to knock the opponent's blade aside as it comes in, things like that, or suddenly launch a thrust that you can try to conceal, things like that. That's all fine and good. There's nothing wrong with that. Reverse grip is the elephant in the room. This has been talked about so many times, and the disadvantages have been demonstrated again and again. I made a video where I gave it the benefit of the doubt and really tried to work out, okay, are there some useful things you can do with a longer blade and reverse grip? And there are some things you can do. Nothing that's as good as conventional grip. This is literally just a disadvantage for no reason. The one good thing about reverse grip is, you know, stabbing like this. This is almost short enough to be useful for that. I mean, you kind of can, and Lancelot's swords are fairly short too. This is actually designed for thrusting rather than those. What are we doing here? Just pointing away from the opponent, threatening to stab someone behind you, which in a duel shouldn't be relevant, heavily turned inward. It looks as if you're trying to fight two sides. Like, oh, there's an enemy here, but there's also one there, so I have to, I'm kind of split, like, where do I need to defend? In a 1v1, not so much. The elbow is awkwardly raised up. I don't know what the point is, other than, again, aesthetic. I get that. It's just supposed to look cool. Yeah, there are some things you can do. Sure, you can cut from here. Yes, you can, I suppose, punch forward with that, although I really wouldn't want to do that for reasons that I think are apparent, right? This I would understand. This would make sense, right? Or this or this or this or this. No, actually, that's a bit awkward with the other sword there, but so many other positions here that make way more sense than that. It's not a total disaster because this is still there, it's still usable, right? And so there are some things you can do from here, like it's not the worst ever, but 2.5 out of 5, or maybe 2. Since we're already at it, Zetta, personally, I prefer to hold a polearm in front of me or raised up in some kind of way so that it's ready to strike. Having only a single hand on a polearm without a shield seems really strange to me. I don't really see why you would ever want to do that. But it's not hard from here to come up and use it, right? So you could come up here like this and strike, and the good thing about that is that you're concealing your reach. Not so much in this position because the opponent can pretty much see how long it is, but still, like, as opposed to letting them know exactly what reach you have, this is a bit of guesswork, right? And as said, there are some things you can do from there. Really, one thing primarily is what I'm seeing. I suppose you could come up straight for an undercut like this, but with one hand that's weak, which is why I'm thinking this sort of flourish. I suppose you could keep it tucked and just move it forward like that. So just driving it forward, thrusting like that doesn't look like it would be very effective with that one, but some things can be done from there. Definitely not something that I would normally want to do, but there are some styles that use this sort of stance with a staff, for example. So again, there are some things you can do from there. But I'm really thinking there needs to be a shield here for that to make sense. And even then, I think I would prefer to have it here rather, so it's quicker to access. So awfully exposed for hardly any benefit. I'm thinking 2 out of 5 at best. Then we got Tusk from Killer Instinct, which is a real stance. This looks more like the Japanese version. Could be used in a similar way in European swordsmanship. Can be varying levels of straight or angled. And in the original version, very strongly retracted. Like he has the other arm all the way in the back here. Like this pretty much is what it looks like. Which is a little weird to me compared to tucking the elbows in. Like you don't actually gain anything from this posture. The thing you're most primed for here is to strike like this. You could come straight down, but this is quite awkward. Like you're better off doing it this way, right? So yeah, again, personally, I prefer it that way. The version in the newer Killer Instinct from, what was it, 2013? Looks a bit more relaxed. Same as Core in Weapon Lord. Wait, hang on. That's not the stance he has at all. I had a false memory. I wonder where that came from. Some kind of interference, perhaps, in my brain. So even though I personally prefer a different version of the stance, this is fine. And again, it looks pretty much like that in Kenjutsu, so 5 out of 5. And since I already mentioned Core, this is not a great stance. Why? You're not doing anything with this hand other than stop or talk to the hand. It's literally just cut me, please. Here, cut my hand, which could be a bait, I suppose. And when they try, you step back and cut. It could be something, but it does seem a little odd to me. This I like a lot more. That looks better, or even this, but that is really what I would prefer to see. Lord Deemos from Mace the Dark Age basically has just a more relaxed version of Tusk's stance, as opposed to feet fairly wide apart and sinking lower. He has his feet closer together and just kind of holding the sword like that. So it's tilted back a bit more, which is good for launching cuts from there. Even going to the other side, you can defend from here, you can attack, you can thrust. I mean, it's not a particularly engaged stance. As I said, pretty relaxed. It's just like, yep, come at me. So personally, I would prefer if it was a little lower, had a bit more spring in the legs to kind of push off more effectively. But for a guy in full plate who's got all the swagger and confidence, he's just like, all right, fine. Let's say like 4 to 5, 4.5, something like that. All right, Taki from Soul Calibur. Everyone's favorite, of course. I wonder why. Hairstandance. Personally, I hate this common ninja trope that they always have the sword in the scabbard on the back and they do everything from there. Why? We're talking a duel, right? So you've been spotted. You may be a ninja, but you've been spotted. The opponent is ready to fight you. And what do? You don't even bother drawing it. You just keep it there and you're just like, yep, I can work from here. Yes, she can, but it's an artificial handicap for no reason. At least her blade is short enough that she can actually draw it from here. But what do you do then? How do you... If you practice obsessively for years and come up with a very rigid attachment method so that the mouth of the scabbard is always in the exact same spot and it doesn't shift and you know exactly where it is, maybe then you could figure out how to sheath it. But that takes so much extra practice for zero benefit, literally just the style points. Other than that, I don't actually mind this too much because this is just a retracted position from where you're primed to strike. There's nothing wrong with that. And unlike Core, who's using a two-handed sword, or at least hand and a half, I understand the hand being here because it's not really going to do anything there. So it's available for grappling. Again, it's a target. As long as you're aware of this being a valid target and you work around it, okay. It's not actually a big deal. So normally, if this was all it was, with the blade drawn, I wouldn't really have so much of a problem. I would say like 4.5. The fact that it's in the scabbard, 3.5. Then there's Cayenne Sheba from Bleach Rebirth of Souls. Wow, I have no complaint whatsoever. This is great. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this was taken straight from Naginata fighting. The rear hand is raised, front hand just resting there, and from here you can do a bunch of things. You can thrust upward, you can cut upward, you can position in any way. Like this is very fast to just quickly change and then cut down or whatever you need to do really. Whether it be a sliding thrust or a two-handed thrust. No problem either way. This is great. And in fact, it's also good defensive position because you're covering your left side quite well. All you need to do from here is just that. So you can block here. Even on the other side, if someone cuts over here, this is all it takes. You just have to displace that, or if you prefer, block it and then counter. There's so many things you can do from here. This is great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. 5 out of 5. Here's an interesting one. Lepan from Suikoden. He has the sword on the left side. A few characters hold their weapon on the left side, like Victor and Kirk, although that guy is a bit of an oddity because he holds it loosely with one hand on the left side, but then strikes with both hands from the right. Victor holds it on the left side and cuts from there too. So Lepan is a bit of an exception in that way, holding it on the left and doing a rising cut, which nobody else does. Wait, hang on. I forgot about Griffith. He does it too. But let's not talk about that because he keeps it in the scabbard. Don't get me wrong, it made sense for samurai to practice quick draw in case of being ambushed or doing ambushing themselves, cutting someone down before they can draw, but I refuse to accept that as a guard when you're already in a fight. Damn it, while editing and double checking, I keep undermining my own point. Turns out Millich is left-handed and does a rising cut from the left side. Why do that with a rapier instead of a thrust? I don't know. Sniff too much poisonous flower pollen, I guess. Anyway, 3 out of over 70 playable characters, not that many. And either way, Lepan's fighting stance sticks out. In this case, it looks almost horizontal. You'd have it lower down, but not that it's really a problem. You can still cut from here. And in fact, there are other things you can do as well. This is technically a different guard, but from here you're primed to switch to that guard pretty quickly. And what does it mean to switch to that guard? Fall touch cut, right? So that can be done. Thrust can be done in the same kind of way. It's a good position. So I give that one a 4.5. Not a full 5 because it just looks slightly off, but then again, there are so many variations of a particular guard you can have that aren't really wrong as such. And of course, it can flow through those in the middle of a fight. In fact, this can easily flow from one position to another. What I find interesting about most characters in Suikoden is they don't really have a fighting stance. They just show up and they're just kind of chill. More of a ready position than a fighting position. You can very quickly get to a fighting stance from here and you can strike from there. So it's not wrong as such. It's just, it looks very chill. Whereas Imperial soldiers, they actually have more of a fighting stance. They actually have the spear down like this so they can come up like that for a thrust and things of that nature. Now, of course, you're dealing with 2 different perspectives in isometric 2D pixel art. So I'm guessing they didn't think it would be clear enough or interesting looking enough. Even the cut rabbits have more of a fighting stance, which is pretty funny. Anyway, hope you found this interesting. Let me know what you think. If you want to see more of these, let me know in the comments and I might continue this. Thanks for watching.